Prepare yourself for a courtroom drama that would ultimately be remembered as one of the boldest and most calculated attempts at insurance fraud ever presented before Judge Judy. Karen Whitmore entered the courtroom projecting an image of fragility so carefully constructed it bordered on theatrical perfection. A spotless neck brace supported her head, a wooden cane bore her weight, and every step she took appeared slow, deliberate, and filled with visible discomfort. Her face reflected what seemed like constant pain, and her body language suggested someone struggling through every second. She had come to court to demand $50,000 from her former employer, claiming a devastating workplace injury had changed her life forever. On the surface, her case appeared solid. She had gathered medical notes from multiple doctors, records of prescribed medications, and documentation showing months of physical therapy. Every detail had been assembled to support her claim. Her presentation was equally convincing: measured speech, controlled emotion, and a performance of suffering that seemed authentic to anyone not looking too closely. Karen believed she had accounted for everything. She was convinced she would walk away with a substantial payout from a small business owner who, in her mind, lacked the resources to fight back effectively. What she did not realize was that the judge had already prepared a response far more calculated than anything she had anticipated. Unnoticed by most in the courtroom, a man sat quietly in the back row. He appeared composed, professional, and observant, holding a medical bag and a thick file. His presence seemed incidental, but in reality, he had been invited specifically for this case. His role would soon shift the entire course of the proceedings. Karen's confidence was rooted in experience. This was not her first attempt at manipulating the system. Over time, she had learned how insurance claims often worked, recognizing that companies sometimes preferred settlement over prolonged disputes. Previous successes had reinforced her belief that persistence and careful presentation could yield financial gain, but this time she had taken things further than ever before. She had gathered documentation from multiple physicians, none of whom were aware of each other's involvement. She had built a detailed narrative of ongoing pain and disability. She had even shaped her public image to align with her claims. In her mind, the case was airtight. Across the room sat Richard Henderson, the defendant. He appeared worn and drained, the strain of months of legal uncertainty evident in his posture and expression. His small business, built over decades of effort, had been severely impacted by the lawsuit. Rising costs, employee departures, and ongoing stress had pushed him to the brink. For him, this case represented more than financial risk. It threatened everything he had worked to build. As the hearing began, Karen delivered her testimony with precision. She described the moment she claimed the injury occurred, recounting how lifting a box had triggered immediate and severe pain. Her tone conveyed controlled distress, and her words painted a picture of a life defined by suffering since that moment. The judge listened carefully, her expression calm but attentive. Her questions were straightforward, almost routine. She asked Karen about the box she had lifted. Karen described it as extremely heavy, far beyond what she could safely handle. What Karen did not know was that this detail had already been verified. Evidence showed the box weighed far less than she claimed, and records indicated she had handled similar items without difficulty. Still, the judge revealed nothing, allowing Karen to continue speaking. Karen expanded on her medical treatment, describing consultations with multiple specialists and ongoing care. She spoke of constant pain, limited mobility, and an inability to carry out everyday tasks. Each statement was delivered with confidence, as though she believed her story could withstand any scrutiny. Then came a turning point. The judge asked Karen to demonstrate how far she could move her head. Karen responded with a dramatic attempt, barely turning, claiming any further motion caused unbearable pain. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. The judge paused, then directed attention to the man seated in the back. He was called forward and introduced as a medical expert who had reviewed the case thoroughly. Karen's composure began to falter. The expert explained that he had analyzed her medical records, observed her behavior, and consulted relevant professionals. His conclusion was clear. Her claims were inconsistent with the evidence. He described observing her earlier, noting that she moved her head freely when she was not actively presenting herself. These movements directly contradicted her testimony. He then pointed out irregularities in her medical history, including the involvement of multiple doctors without mutual awareness. This raised serious concerns about the legitimacy of her treatment claims. Next, he addressed her diagnostic reports. Independent analysis showed no signs of serious injury, only normal physical conditions consistent with her age. Finally, he presented evidence from her own public social media accounts. Images appeared showing her engaging in activities requiring significant physical ability, activities incompatible with the limitations she described. The impact was immediate and undeniable. Karen's narrative began to collapse. The consistency she had maintained throughout her testimony dissolved under the weight of the evidence. She attempted to respond, offering explanations, but her earlier confidence was gone. Her words lacked the certainty they once carried. The judge intervened, bringing the focus back to the central issue. She asked the expert whether there was any legitimate basis for Karen's claims. The answer was direct. There was none. The ruling followed swiftly. Karen's claim was dismissed entirely. Instead, she was ordered to compensate her former employer for the harm caused by the lawsuit. The case was also referred for further legal action. The decision marked a dramatic shift in the courtroom. Karen's composed demeanor gave way to visible distress, while Richard Henderson showed clear relief after months of uncertainty. Beyond the courtroom, the case quickly gained widespread attention. The contrast between Karen's claims and the evidence presented captured public interest, leading to extensive discussion and analysis. Legal professionals highlighted the case as an example of careful preparation and evidence-based judgment. It became a reference point for discussions about fraud detection and courtroom strategy. For Karen, the consequences extended far beyond the initial ruling. Legal action followed, leading to significant penalties and lasting personal impact. In the end, the case served as a clear reminder that deception, no matter how carefully constructed, cannot endure under thorough examination. Truth, supported by evidence and careful analysis, ultimately prevails.